Halo, selamat datang kawan-kawan, rekan-rekan aviasi. Kembali bersama saya Ziva Narendra, Director dan Co-founder dari Aviator Indonesia, sebuah perusahaan consulting dalam bidang penerbangan berbasis Jakarta. Kita bertemu kembali kali ini di episode keempat atau kelima, kalau tidak salah, dari podcast, karena jaraknya sudah cukup lama dari episode kami yang terakhir, hampir 1 tahun ya, sejak kita merekam episode yang di Jepang. Waktu itu bersama Open Sky, kalau teman-teman sudah menonton. Kali ini kita bertemu kembali dengan topik yang tidak kalah menarik, dengan tamu yang juga tidak kalah menarik. Dan kita akan membahas aspek lain dari industri, bukan cuma penerbangan, tapi dalam kesempatan kali ini kita berbicara mengenai lingkungan hidup. Dan sebelum kita masuk nih ke dalam diskusi utamanya, jangan lupa untuk follow, like, dan subscribe channel AI Net Beyond the Skies. Moga-moga kita bisa menambah topik dan episode yang lebih menarik ke depannya. Hari ini, I'm in Singapore. Jadi saya akan bicara mix between bahasa Indonesia and English. Ya, nanti akan ada subtitle dan caption di bawah. But today I am in Singapore. I just arrived this morning. I am very grateful to be invited by our business partner based in Singapore as well, who specialize in wildlife management. Wildlife management, think about that term for a second. So, because we work in the aviation industry, of course, when we talk about wildlife, that would pertain or that would relate to wild animals that may inhabit the airport ecosystem. So today we get the opportunity to discuss with Mastermark in Singapore, with my friend Sam Lievensie, wildlife ecologist for Mastermark. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. We had a very eventful morning.
Yes.
We already had lunch, cup of coffee as well.
Yes.
But today it's finally the opportunity where we get to know more about not only each other, but also get to know more about Mastermark's activities, and also to perhaps inform the general public and the stakeholders and perhaps people who are in the industry who may or may not be aware enough of what is the correlation between wildlife and air operations, especially in airports.
Yeah, totally.
So in today's discussion, Sam, we would like to know more about your activities, about your team, and of course, I'm very proud to say that Aviatori has been in good partnership with the Mastermark this past year. We've acknowledged the same concerns and importance of this subject. So we'll talk about you as well.
Totally.
All right. So getting into the first phase of the discussion. Yeah. I know you've been with Mastermark for quite some time, but could you perhaps elaborate a little bit about the company itself?
Sure.
And your general activities, just for the general public to understand.
Yeah, totally.
Your core business.
Totally. So first, I don't understand Bahasa, but I did understand subscribe.
Okay,
so
that's the most important.
Yeah, exactly. So like and subscribe, right?
Thank you very much.
I got that bit. Thank you so much for having me. I've been at Mastermark for almost 4 years now. So it's been here in Singapore. It's been great. I'm originally from the US, but I came over here to Singapore and found Mastermark, or Mastermark found me. So been here for a little bit, and Mastermark, we're a wildlife consultancy. So we definitely, it's not just one aspect that we tackle. We do bird management, so that can be anything from like bird netting to big consultancies for airports or construction projects, all that kind of stuff. So anything wildlife we do, and we like to consider ourselves Southeast Asia's largest wildlife management company. So we built our way up from just a small company that just with, netting, bird management for just pigeons, and kind of grew from there. And now we deal with international airports. So definitely something interesting. My background is actually in wildlife, zoology, anything with wildlife, not necessarily aviation, even though I do like planes.
Okay.
You definitely know more of the plane bit. I would definitely know more of the wildlife bit. But so we always like to look at science-backed data when it comes to our consultancies. So a little bit about Mastermark. We're based here in Singapore, but we do have airports around the region, and also hopefully around the world as well. So yeah.
Excellent. So, what is the landscape like in the wildlife management business? If you can talk about,
Yeah.
I'm very stranger or foreign to this, but is it common for that there are wildlife management agencies or companies around the world? Are there many of them?
Like, I would say not too many.
Okay.
So it very much depends country by country, region by region, maybe even city by city. It's not something like cybersecurity or something where every airport's doing it. Some airports are doing more when it comes to wildlife hazard management. Some are doing little to nothing. So it really depends on just the landscape of wildlife hazard management as a whole differs greatly from region to region. But when it comes to wildlife hazard management companies, really there's not too many in the region. There's a few in different parts of the world, but for Southeast Asia, we're kind of one of the only ones when it comes to private companies like that.
I see. And what would you say your core services? What are the key the services of Mastermark?
Sure. So we like to kind of, when it comes to aviation, we have three main services. I kind of like to think of it kind of like a waterfall from one to the next to the next. So we always like to start with training. So you're not sure where to begin, you can always get trained. So we do have our very own trainings, actually with Embry-Riddle.
Okay.
So we partnered together, and we have currently, as of 2025, the only ICAO certified wildlife hazard management courses. So we have a management and an operations course. The reason why we have two is because we really like training that actually works. It's not just a boring training that you get on because you have to. We like to make it engaging, and we're proud of our services and what we can provide. So we like to make the trainings as hands-on as possible, testing out dispersal tools or drawing reports on big pieces of paper, just making it interactive. I think that's the best way. I know myself, I'm a very visual learner, so I can't just listen to a computer tell me what just the basic training. I need to actually be doing it. So we try to implement that as much as possible. But we have two courses there. We have the management, which is more for maybe policymakers, airport managers, maybe
Regulators.
regulators. Like if you want to create a WHMP or improve upon it, wildlife hazard management plan or program, that would be through. You would want to go to the management course. We talk all about that. Whereas the operations is it's the fun one where we get outside, we test gas cannons and stock whips and all the dispersals. So we like to start with training there. And then after that is consultancy. That's going to be where your wildlife biologists or airport biologists come into play. So that's myself and my team of biologists. And that's coming up with different risk matrices. Not all birds are created equally, so not all strikes are created equally. Yeah. So you have some bigger birds like eagles or egrets, and those could be much more damaging than, let's say, little sparrows or swallows. So we like to come up with different matrices for different airports. And each airport would be different because you have different birds at each airport. Even, let's say, like if you have one airport in the middle of East Kalimantan, in the middle of the rainforest, you would have much different birds and biodiversity than you would on one in the same province or state or city, but on the coast.
Right.
So the coast, you might have the water birds, whereas in the middle of the deep rainforest, you might have hornbills that you want to deal with. So definitely it's airport by airport, but our consultancy would look at that environment. And from there, we can determine, gap analysis. What are you guys doing? What can be improved upon? And we can also look at the environment. So a lot of times people just focus on the dispersal techniques, but we like to focus on the habitat modification as well. So making the airport as least attractive as possible.
Right.
Yeah. So that might look like maybe netting up a water area, maybe keeping a short grass policy. Maybe for a different airport, you want a long grass policy. Maybe it's pruning trees or around the airport, or maybe if you're even building an airport, we could recommend trees that don't fruit and attract birds. So making sure that airport is as not attractive for birds as possible, that would be another thing that we would do during our consultancy. I know that's a lot. That's just on my point too, but that's our consultancy business. There's a lot more to it. I could create a 5-hour episode on that. And then lastly, we feel that a lot of consultants just kind of stop there. They'll give you a report. Here you go. We got our money. Here's your report. Goodbye.
Right.
But we actually like to recommend things that are feasible that you'll actually see some results with.
Right.
Yeah. So that last bit would be our ground operations, and that's going to be our on the ground team, dispersing birds, and that's maybe even capturing dogs or wild boar, or in some cases in Indonesia, orangutans. You never know. But we actually at Mastermark have our own team of wildlife specialists that are different from our biologists. And those specialists are the ones that know how to catch crocodiles. Wow. They know how to catch monkeys. They know how to dart a monkey. So it's kind of that on the ground rigor and grit that they know how to capture this animal. It might be different from capturing this animal. I'll admit, Ziva, I don't know how to capture a crocodile. So I know about the ecology.
You're more of a bird guy.
Well, no, even birds, I know all about them, but I don't know necessarily. I'm not the best. I'm not the person to ask for if you need one caught. So that's where our wildlife specialist team comes into play. So that's kind of our 3 pillars there. You have your training, consultancy, and then your ground operations. And that kind of rounds out a program of you're getting your knowledge, you're getting the data, and then you're actually putting both of those together on the ground, are kind of our 3 pillars there.
Interesting. Understanding these 3 pillars and these, I guess, phases, if not 3 prongs of your person training, and then the operations, of course, the consulting. That's seem to be would be most suitable if it were ongoing, right? Because you put forward action plans, something that can be put on records, and then measurable results as well. All these parameters, all these services, and your core services, were they inspired by demands that are coming from the airline community, or is that something that is addressed globally, that we need to pay more attention into wildlife management and to have a more, let's say, humane approach to preserving nature on one hand, but also ensuring very little to no disruption to the airline operation with the growth of the industry itself globally?
I think where it comes from, the three pillars, is that we did start out as such a hands-on company. So it's just not in our nature to just give a report of just very vague recommendations. we're on the ground people. We want to be on the ground to come up with actual solutions. So I think that's kind of where it stems for. Also, because I am a biologist, I obviously I'm a bird nerd or an animal nerd. I really do enjoy animals, and a lot of us at Mastermark, we maybe come from different wildlife backgrounds. Some of us worked at the zoo, all that kind of stuff. So obviously we don't want to just shoot all the birds with guns. We come at a place of compassion for animals, as well as also knowing that the risk to aircraft as well. So we like to strike a balance between the urban built and wild. And it also kind of helps that we're a Singaporean company, because Singapore is very much an urban jungle where we have all of these high rises and skyscrapers and everything's built up. Yet somehow we have all of these natural parks and greenery kind of built in into our urban jungle in a way. So I think it's just kind of in our Singapore roots to to kind of find that balance between the otters that come in Singapore and also I guess this is an analogy, the otters that come in and then maybe the koi that we have for some people. The otters will come in and eat the koi. So hey, how do we protect both the koi, our human built, and the otters, the wild animals? So yeah.
So a lot of it also comes from local wisdom or culture, local wisdom.
Sure, yeah.
Because you have, such a, very vast biodiversity, but also with progress of development, and you got to be coexist and how to manage that with such amount of space available. And you want to see the urban development go further on.
Yeah.
But of course, you want to preserve and conserve nature as much as possible.
Totally.
Right. But what does it take for someone to become a wildlife ecologist or expert? What sort of study discipline you have to go through?
Yeah. So, very good question. I think for me personally, it would differ from person to person, but I've always been interested in wildlife, like you said. So I got a degree in environmental science and sustainability, actually, and then like kind of with an emphasis in zoology. But I think it takes understanding not just wildlife or the anatomy of an animal. It takes more than that. It takes understanding the environment, why the animal's coming in. So I know I kind of talked in our other interview, but what's attracting wildlife to an airport would be food, water, or shelter. So understanding the ecological background behind that, sort of like what trees. And another example would be sometimes when we get wildlife strikes, sometimes what we'll do is we'll actually dissect their stomach and see what the birds are eating. And then let's say we have eagles that are getting struck and we have the carcass of the eagle. What we'll do is we'll dissect the stomach. Let's say they're eating rats. That tells us, the wildlife airport biologists, that we need to work on maybe mitigating the rat problem in your airport. So it's way more than, we are getting eagle strikes. We need to, how do we get rid of the eagles? Let's just try to disperse the eagles all day. Well, instead of just dispersing the eagles all day, what you could do is maybe manage what they're eating. So the rats, maybe that's filling in rat burrows or something like that. So it just kind of, I enjoy the ecological background behind this. Also, I moved from the US to Singapore, so I'm really, really interested in travel as well. So personally, I enjoy the job because it kind of mixes two passions. I get to see some wildlife as well as travel and do planes. It's like the best of both worlds. Couldn't have asked for a better job.
I can imagine anything that's more awesome than that.
Yeah.
I mean, well, you mentioned about compassion side of things. From firsthand experience, we've also seen the way wildlife in airport ecosystem has or had been managed in the past. Unfortunately, more conventional methods and oftentimes inhumane. I know we can always classify them as wildlife or stray or whatever, but they of course, they're looking on the basic necessities that you mentioned: shelter, food, and also securities like normal living beings do. But now there are other ways to view things, other perspectives on. Perhaps they're not just of an hassle. They might actually contribute to the ecosystem, which of course, direct or indirectly, would benefit us as the ones who are actually occupying the landscape.
Yeah. And also, I also don't want to come off as too save the animals, because I do, at the end of the day, I have a job because of aviation safety. So as much as I am a wildlife animal enthusiast, number one, obviously, is aviation safety. So there are certain times where it has to come to maybe humanely culling a population. We're not always, save every animal. But let's say if you were to every day just start shooting birds, actually, of course, is it humane? Maybe not, but also it might actually not be the most effective thing to do. So just one-off, let's say, culling just different birds or shooting a bird. Sure, you get rid of one bird, but if you know anything about birds, a lot of them are in flocks, and sometimes, let's say, if there are less birds, sometimes the natural instinct for certain birds is to lay more eggs to fill that niche. So one example would be pigeons. They have a very, very, very quick incubation cycle, so they're having multiple eggs in every single year, and those pigeons can become from babies to adults very, very quickly, and really, really, really quick life cycles there. So actually just plain shooting birds is, I don't think, is that effective. I think one of the more effective things to do is definitely to look at that habitat modification and not making looking at a full bigger picture and looking at more proactive measures than more reactive measures than that. Yeah.
Can you mention some examples where the end users, the customers, your customers, the airports and the airlines would see actual results benefiting from wildlife management, achieving your goals to preserve nature, to mitigate the risks, protecting the animals, but also yielding a positive result for the customers in terms of less hazard reports, less incidents. Have you can you show me some examples?
Yeah. So again, I'll kind of take a different route on the question, because we actually like to promote reporting all of your bird strikes. And realistically, birds are birds. They're always changing. There are migrating birds coming in. There's water birds. There's raptors or birds of prey in the sky. There's grassland birds. So there's so many different factors, weather, climate, different types of birds to take into consideration. So saying lessening bird strikes is actually, we don't really like that matrix, because you're always going to have bird strikes, honestly. But what we can do is lessen damaging strikes. So we really like to promote culture of reporting. So reporting all your bird strikes. Why? Because it gives us more data to work with, and your airport can understand more about the environment by reporting. So actually, if you look at IBIS, which is the kind of ICAO World Bird Strike Reporting platform, a lot of North America and Europe, they have really, really high bird strike rates. But if you look at other places like Africa, Asia, they have really, really low. Is it because Africa and Asia are not reporting as many bird strikes? No, it just might be a cultural thing where you don't want to report because you don't want to get in trouble. But we like to promote report, and then you get more data, and then you can actually start to see a decline in your damaging bird strikes, and that's the one that matters. So a little bit earlier, I talked about how you might want a risk matrix, or maybe a large bird might be more of a risk than a tiny bird. So that kind of goes into play here. A damaging strike is probably from a larger bird. So when we look at your airport and we come up with the bird risk matrices for different airports and different species, we can trend and see the strikes of, let's say, a large bird like an eagle are going down, and you're having less damage to your aircraft. Because if you're large, let's say 777 is hitting a really tiny bird, it's not even gonna, you might see a little blood smear, but it's not gonna cause any dents. Yeah. So kind of a unique take. I don't think too many people think about that. They just think, let's get the bird strike numbers down. But what you really, really want to look for is getting damaging bird strike numbers down.
Yeah, I would second that traditional way of thinking is to just kind of eliminate the apparent problem that's really right in front of your eyes, and which are causing the problems are the birds. So the birds has to go away, which is not the case. And from our earlier session, we were talking about you were encouraging the culture of reporting, and I also told you that in reality that's something in some parts of the world, not entirely. Sometimes reporting things that are well intended, that may inspire improvement, can sometimes be viewed as frowned upon or something that's negative even, and may have some serious repercussions to whoever's reporting. But nonetheless, I think we're in the culture of safety nowadays. It's inevitable that we, especially now in the past 5 years following the pandemic, you see incidents involving not just airlines, but also general aviations, including military. Not to say that all of them involve bird strikes or wildlife, but just goes to show the overwhelming surge post COVID-19 after the suspension of all operations. There's so much to catch on.
Yeah.
The culture of safety needs to be reinvigorated, and among them is awareness towards the ecosystem. What are some of the testimonies, if you've ever had any direct interaction with users or pilots or people who are actually on the ground, who may have experienced firsthand on wildlife or bird strikes, and perhaps those who have seen the improvement based on the mitigation methods that you're familiar with?
Sure. First, you talked about COVID-19. I actually wanted to quickly mention that also in a lot of airports, you see flight movements going up until 2019, right? And then they drop right at 2020.
Right.
What we found is that a lot of the birds get habituated, or they just get used to they got used to coming back to the airports. Because there were less flights in 2020 and 2021.
Right.
And now we're past pre-pandemic levels, but it was so quick. So we went from this big drop, and then now 2025, we're past 2019.
Oh.
So now we're seeing even more bird strikes because the birds came back when it was COVID-19, when COVID-19 was a thing in 2020, because they're like, oh, there's not flights here, I can make my home here. They came back, and then all of a sudden we got a bunch more flights, and then they started getting hit more. So something to keep in mind there. Right. Just as you mentioned COVID-19, it kind of brought up in my head some.
Sorry to cut you off there, but does that have something to do with the resilience of the animals themselves or the wildlife themselves? Because they seem to become used to habitate of the vast landscape that's been vacant for so long.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a natural instinct to kind of just claim their domain and just kind of be resilient about it.
I'll give you an example for an eagle or a hawk. An airport is the ideal environment because it's this big grass field, and they have usually, especially in the tropics, so Singapore and Indonesia, you would have a line of trees right outside the airport, and then you have a big grassy field. So perfect for an eagle to sit in the tree, overlook the grassy field for any rats or any small songbirds, for them to look and then go down, swoop, grab their prey, and then come back. Also, a lot of different eagles and raptor, that's what I call raptors, not necessarily dinosaurs or any birds of prey. They also really, really like hot surfaces. So you'll find a lot of them sitting on the runway for the heat. So
yes, we have seen that.
Yeah. So if you've seen, if 2020, all of a sudden this airport, you barely have any flights. They're like, wait, I can come back here. It's perfect. I have a meal. I have a place to hang out. I have a place to get hot. And then all of a sudden, within a year or two, there's even more flights.
Party's over.
They're like, what's going on? Yeah. So exactly that.
Yeah. I see. Coming back to the previous question.
Yes, my apologies.
No problem. So I specifically wanted to hear about that. Yeah. Trying to understand from the wildlife point of view.
Yeah.
If we could just kind of understand your thoughts. But have you had an interaction with pilots on?
Yes. Yeah. What I can speak on is an example that we recently had. We had. This kind of goes more, maybe not a pilot perspective, but it's a stakeholder perspective. And that's when we had a bird called Asian open-bill stork. They're massive storks, and they're migratory. They barely come into the region where this airport is. So they came in, they're abnormal, and there's these giant birds that came in the hundreds of thousands right near the airport and in construction sites near that airport. So the airport was like, what are we going to do? There's these giant birds. So I think this is a good case study to kind of show what Mastermark would do in that situation. So what we did is we kind of implemented more surveys on the birds to just track where they're going, so we know exactly where from point A to point B, maybe what part of the runway they're flying over, so we can give the airport that information. An example would be, let's say these storks are flying over the runway from, this is just imaginary, but let's say 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's good information for the airport to know. Maybe they halt flights then, or maybe something like that.
Right.
So they have at least a little bit of an idea of where they're flying, their flight behaviors for this new species that's in the airport. And then another thing we'll look at is what they're eating. So when we did all of these observations, looking at what exactly these Asian open-bill storks are doing, they're eating a bunch of snails, which is great information for us.
Right.
Great. So what we did is we talked to the stakeholders, the construction sites around the airport, kind of briefed them on, hey, this is a threat to the nearby airport for aviation safety. Can you help us out? Most likely, your stakeholders will say yes.
Okay.
They want to help out as much as they can. And not always, but what we did is we actually controlled that snail population by using snail repellent.
Right.
So what we did is we actually were able to kind of mitigate and manage those big storks coming into the airport by working with stakeholders and the airport group. So kind of being that middleman and working with everyone and not looking at just one thing. We looked at where they were flying to, what are they eating, what are the easiest dispersals. We actually found with them, you don't need the most fancy dispersal LRAD.
Right.
You can actually use just a flag. So we got these big flags, and they hated that, so they'll fly away from that. So
Only for stores.
for that store,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
You do it to another species, and they
One word.
yeah. So it's very species specific, and it's a lot of trial and error. Luckily, we have many decades of experience
Right.
with knowing what species are going to react to what kind of dispersal tools or what kind of habitat modification we're going to do. So that was kind of a recent example of kind of helping out the airport group, the stakeholders, and how to deal with something as crazy as a large bird. I mean, we're talking like almost, I think almost, gosh, they're maybe half the size of me. So
Wow.
they're pretty big animals.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
and if hundreds of them come to the airport,
And of
that
course,
could
we're
be
not just
great.
thinking birds. We're talking
Yeah.
about, you know.
Yeah. So that would be somewhat of an example.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're nearing the end of our session.
Yeah. It's been fun.
You made it. With aviatory, despite our core businesses in consulting, and we're well versed in aircraft operations,
Sure.
sales acquisitions, flights, training, education, pilot stuff. But we'd like to challenge ourselves, to push ourselves to become more aware of the prevailing issues worldwide. What's going on with industry? What's going on with adjacent industries that are impacted or have a relationship with aerospace or air transport? And we'd like to push ourselves into territories we otherwise have very little to no knowledge whatsoever, including wildlife, because we like to ask questions and we like people to ask questions. And we sort of have the knack to try to convince the industry that it's not just a trend, it's not global awareness, save the animal, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's very important for the sustainability of the future. You know, before we think about sustainability as a fashionable word, fashionable term, but the key is preserving the environment. We can still progress as a society. We can be advanced in technology, but even advancement in technology needs to complement the environment firsthand.
Totally.
Agree, disagree, but that seems to be our point of view. The same thing with our viewpoint towards subjects such as cybersecurity or even AI, for example. But progress in technology should be met with equal amount of responsibility as well, including in the subject of wildlife. Now, what would be your takeaway message for people such as myself and also our viewers and perhaps a good portion of the industry on addressing the importance of wildlife management?
So I guess a good takeaway would be, whether you want to or not, you have to deal with wildlife hazard management. The birds are going to be there. The wildlife is going to be there, especially somewhere like Indonesia where you have over 1,000 species of birds, I'm pretty sure. A very biodiverse part of the world. You have anywhere from large birds of prey to water birds like egrets and herons, and you have even large forest birds as well. So there's something to think about is that's always going to be a problem. You can't push it under the rug, and if you do push it under the rug, God forbid, something really, really bad could happen. So it should be just like anything else when it comes to aviation safety. This should be right up there with all of that. And definitely, my other thing I want to stress is that there's no one silver bullet. Right. So there's not one tool that is, let's buy this and all of our problems are fixed. Unfortunately, you do have to kind of roll your sleeves up and get a little bit dirty and really, really look at the science behind your airport. So your airport, again, whether you like it or not, is a habitat to many, many different species. And there's not a silver bullet robot machine that can disperse all the birds and give you all your data and you can call it a day. A lot of birds, if we do the same dispersal method to them, they get used to it. Right. So you have to use a toolbox of many different tools. So there's not just one tool you want to buy. You might want to buy a few and kind of use all of those different tools to kind of keep the birds on their feet. Also, you want to you want to look at the science behind it. You want to look at trending data. You want to look at, take into account migratory seasons. You want to look at monsoon season versus dry season. Just all of these different scientific things you need to look at to better understand your airport. And that is something that we at Mastermark do, but yeah, it's always good to look at the science behind your airport. It is an ecosystem, whether you like it or not.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Very good, powerful message. And I think it goes without saying that the very little awareness and knowledge that we have toward wildlife management does not mean that it's less important than other aspects of air operations. It's not a safety culture, and it's only become I would say highlighted once something really happened.
It's always
like that. I mean, the same thing with when we came up with SMS decades ago. Same thing with how we improve our training systems after certain accidents happens. Unfortunately, that is the nature. But I think for something that is preventable and can actually benefit us in the future, it would serve best for all stakeholders. And so that's our discussion today with Sam Lievensie from Mastermark, Singapore.
Yes.
I mentioned your last name right?
It's perfect. I got yours right too.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
You should watch the other segment. That's equally awesome. So this is a back-to-back episode. I want to thank the team Mastermark as well for today's opportunity. And we hope we can collaborate more in the future. I know we have a lot of homework ahead of us. Wildlife is important. Yeah, don't undermine that. And we look forward to discussing more with our customers and partners and fellow policymakers at home. Dan teman-teman, itulah diskusi saya bersama Sam yang sudah meluangkan waktunya di kantor Mastermark. Mestinya teman-teman, you should see the view I'm looking at outside the window right now, pemandangan luar sana. Ini bukti bahwa saya di Singapura, ya. Ini di kantor Mastermark ini pemandangannya, I'm talking about us, but I'm actually talking about the view. Because I can't get over it. Ini
we can see Indonesia.
Jadi di jendela keluar sana, looking outside the window, itu the Singapore Strait, Selat Singapura. Saya melihat banyak kapal, terus di sebelah kanan itu adalah sirkuit Formula One, of course Marina, dan ujung di bawah sana, what about 60 nautical miles, 50? Itu Pulau Batam kelihatan. Jadi nggak ada hubungannya, it has no correlation whatsoever with today's topic. I'm just sharing with you my view, what I'm showing right now from Mastermark office. Jadi terima kasih sekali lagi. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mastermark. Thank you, Lee, for standing by and assisting with the production side. And we'll see you next opportunity. Terima kasih. Jangan lupa follow, like, and subscribe. Salam aviasi. Sehat selalu. Bye.
Bye.
Perfect.
Good
We're done for the day. It's much more pleasant to be interviewed than interviewing.